Picture this. It's January in Newfoundland. The temperature outside is -15. Inside a small apartment, a grandmother sits at her kitchen table wearing 2 sweaters and a winter coat. She's looking at her electricity bill. $340. That's nearly half of what she has left after paying rent. She turns the thermostat down to 16 degrees again. This isn't a story from the 1930s. This is happening right now in 2025 in one of the wealthiest countries in the world. And she's not alone. Hey everyone, welcome back to The Weird Canadian. Today we're going to deep dive into something that doesn't nearly get enough attention in Canada. I'm not talking about oil prices or carbon tax debate. I'm talking about the 822,000 Canadian households who are spending so much on their income on basic energy that they're forced to make impossible choices. Heat or eat, warmth or medicine, comfort or survival. Now, before you click away thinking this doesn't affect you, stick with me, because the data I'm about to show you reveals something shocking. This crisis is way bigger than most Canadians realize. It's getting worse, and the solutions we are using right now, they're not working. But here's the thing, it doesn't have to be this way. Other countries have figured this out. And by the end of this video, I'm going to show you exactly what Canada needs to do to fix it. So, let's get into it. First, let's define what we're actually talking about. What is energy poverty? The official definition by Statistics Canada is pretty straightforward. If you're spending 10% or more after your taxable income on home energy, that's electricity, natural gas, heating oil, whatever you use to keep the lights on and the heat running, you're considered to be in energy poverty. Now, that might not sound like a lot, 10%, but think about it this way. The average Canadian household spends about 3% of their income on energy. So if you're spending 10%, you're spending more than 3 times what most people pay relative to your income. And here's the kicker, 822,000 households. That's just counting home energy. When research includes transportation energy, the gas in your car, that number jumps to nearly 2 million households. That's roughly 11% of all Canadian families. But energy poverty isn't just about the numbers on the bill. Research have identified 3 core drivers that trap people in this crisis. 1, obviously, unaffordability. You have low income, high energy costs, or both. 2, poor housing quality. You're living in a home with terrible insulation, drafty windows, an ancient furnace that guzzles energy, and even if the energy prices were reasonable, you're still paying through the nose because your home is basically. And 3, systematic marginalization. You're locked out of solutions. Maybe you're a renter and can't upgrade your apartment. Maybe you're a newcomer and don't know about the assistance programs. Maybe you live in a remote community that isn't even connected to the power grid. And when these 3 factors overlap, that's when you get the grandmother in Newfoundland sitting in her coat, choosing between heat and groceries. Okay, so who's actually affected by this? Let's look at the data, because it tells a really clear and very troubling story. Nationally, 5.6% of households are in energy poverty, but the average hides some massive regional differences. Atlantic Canada is getting Newfoundland and Labrador 13.7%, Nova Scotia's 12.5%, Prince Edward 11.4%, New Brunswick's 10.7%. These provinces have rates that are double or even triple the national average. Why? 3 reasons. Older housing stock, lower average incomes, and this is huge, a reliance on heating oil, which is expensive, price volatile, and subject to taxes. Compare that to British Columbia at 4.9%, or Quebec, which has some of the lowest rates in the country because of cheap hydroelectricity. And Quebec, I know where you get most of that from. It's from Newfoundland and Labrador. We'd like some of that back. But here's where it gets really stark. The Indigenous communities are underrepresented. The energy poverty rate on reserve households is 12.9%. That's more than double the national average. But that's just the official number. A broader survey found that 32% of Indigenous people report experiencing energy insecurity, and for being First Nations living on reserve, that jumps to 36%. So why is this so? Because approximately 250 remote communities in Canada, most of them Indigenous, aren't connected to the power grid. They rely on diesel fuel that has to be trucked or flown in, and that means electricity costs are 5 to 10 times higher than what you pay in a city. So let me put that in perspective. If you're paying 12 cents per kilowatt hour in Toronto, somebody in Nunavut might actually be paying over $1 for the exact same electricity. The government provides subsidies, about $300 to $400 million per year, to try and offset this, but that's not enough. These communities are still drowning in energy costs. Now, let's talk about who's most vulnerable here. One-person households, 10% of poverty rate, is often seniors living alone and on fixed incomes. Homes needing major repairs, 9.7%. If your house is falling apart, it's also bleeding energy. Homes built before 1960, 7.7%. Older homes, less insulation, higher bills. Seniors over 55, 6.9% are on fixed incomes that don't keep up with rising energy costs. And single-parent households, 6.4%, one income for all of the bills. And here's something that really surprised me. Owner-occupied homes have a higher energy poverty rate, 6.1%, than the national average. Why? Because a lot of renters have utilities included in their rent. So their energy burden is hidden in the statistics. But make no mistake, they're still paying for it. It's just buried in the rent. So we know who's affected. Now, let's talk about why this is happening. Because if you don't understand the drivers, how can you fix it? A huge chunk of Canada's housing was built decades ago, before we cared about energy efficiency. Homes built before 1960 have an energy poverty rate of 7.7%. These homes have poor insulation, single-pane windows, ancient furnaces that waste energy, and air that leaks everywhere. Trying to heat these houses is like trying to heat a house with all the windows open. There's a structural problem. And the structural problem, the landlord-tenant split incentive. If you're a renter, you pay the energy bill, but you can't upgrade the insulation or repair the furnace. You're a landlord. You have zero financial incentive to make those upgrades because you're not the ones paying the utility bill. So renters get trapped in inefficient apartments, paying sky-high energy costs with no way out. And even when you buy these homes, it costs a lot to replace them. In Fort Erie, I did this on my place, and it cost me about 20 grand to just put in windows. And that didn't bring down my efficiency all that well, but it at least helped. So let's talk about what's actually going on with your energy bill. Because it's not just the cost of electricity or gas. You got commodity charges, the actual energy you use, fixed charges, a monthly flat fee, no matter how much you use, transmission and distribution charges, the cost of maintaining the grid, and in some places, this is 17% of your bill. And of course, carbon pricing, the federal carbon tax on fossil fuels like natural gas and heating oil. Now, carbon pricing is designed to reduce emissions, and the government gives back most of the money through rebates. But here's the problem. If you're a low-income household heating with oil or gas, and you have no viable alternative, no access to a heat, no money for a retrofit, that carbon price just became another cost you cannot avoid. And those fixed charges, they hit low-income households the hardest because you're paying them whether you use energy or not. So even if you turn off everything in your house, you're still being charged. We already talked about this, but it bears about 250 remote communities, with about 70 to 75% of them relying on diesel, face energy costs that are astronomical. Diesel has to be transported over vast distances because we have no infrastructure, often by air. It's expensive, it's polluting, and it creates extreme price volatility. The federal government subsidizes this to a tune of hundreds of millions of dollars a year, but that's still not enough. These communities are locked into a system that's both economically and environmentally unsustainable. At the end of the day, energy poverty is about the gap between what you earn and what you have to pay. Households earning less than $31,000 a year, 2.1% of them are in energy poverty. That's more than 1 in 5. When wages are stagnant, when the rent is eating up 40 to 50% of your income, when there's no room left for that $300 energy bill, people are starting to make trade-offs. They underheat their homes in the winter, they skip meals, they go into debt, and that stress is crushing. It leads to a very serious mental decline being under that burden. I can speak to from experience. All right, so I don't want to just be doom and gloom. So what can we do? What are we doing about it? Canada does have programs to address this, right? We're not just leaving people in the cold. Well, yes and no. We have programs, but they're fragmented, underfunded, and often don't reach people who really need them. Federal programs like the Greener Homes Initiative. This grant offers up to $5,000 for energy efficient retrofits. Things like insulation, new windows, heat pumps, and it's been popular. Over 600,000 homes have been retrofitted. But here's the problem. You have to pay up front, then you get reimbursed later. If you're low income, you don't have savings or credit, so you can't pay for it. 2, if you're almost entirely homeowner. 2, it's almost entirely for homeowners. If you're a renter, 1/3 of the get nothing. And 3, the grants often don't cover full costs of deep retrofits, especially on older homes. Now here's some good news. As of 2025, there's a new affordability program with $800 million in funding that offers no-cost retrofits for low to medium income households, including renters. That's a big step forward, but it's brand new and we have no clue what it'll reach and if it scales or what it's going to look like. The provinces also have 2 main types of programs. Bill assistance programs. These give you emergency money to pay your bill or ongoing monthly costs. Ontario's LEAP program, for example, offers up to $650 for electricity bills or $780 if you heat with electricity. These problems are crucial for preventing disconnections and keeping people housed, but they're band-aids. They don't fix the underlying problem. Your house is inefficient. And they also have weatherization programs. These provide free, subsidized energy upgrades, great in theory, but they're underfunded and have long wait lists and often focus on cheap, low-impact measures like LED bulbs instead of big stuff like insulation or furnace replacement. So here's what's missing. We have no national... Energy poverty isn't formally defined in our federal law. There's no national target or coordinated plan. Renters are left behind because most programs ignore the split incentive program. There's burdens. You have to apply, you have to provide documentation, navigate bureaucracy. If you're struggling with literacy, language, or just the stress of poverty, you're probably not going to do it, on top of paying for that bureaucracy. And unsustainable funding. Programs come and go with political wins. You cannot solve a structural problem with short-term funding. So let's break down what other countries. Take the United Kingdom. They have automatic support. The UK has a warm home discount scheme. It's beautifully simple. If you're low income and eligible, you automatically get £150 off your electricity bill every year. No application. The energy company just applies it based on government data. The lesson for Canada, automatic is better. If you remove the application barrier, you reach way more people. The European Union has legal protections. So the EU in 2019 created an electricity directive requiring member states to formally define and track energy poverty and prohibit disconnections for vulnerable customers, including in winter. Here's the lesson for Canada. Make it law, protect people, and no one should have their heat cut off in January. The United States even has a program. The US has actually 2 programs, LHEAP, bill assistance, and for weatherization. States can transfer up to 15% of funds into the 2 programs. So they're not just helping people pay their bills, they're fixing their homes so their bills go down permanently. Here's the lesson for Canada. Integrating short-term relief with long-term solutions, you just might save a few people. And here's the cautionary tale. Even with these programs, only 0.2% of eligible US homes get weathered each year. Why? Because funding alone isn't enough. You need outreach, you need trust, you need to remove every barrier to participation. We just need blanket fixing. Alright, we've covered the problem, the failures, and what's working elsewhere. Now let's talk solutions. What can Canada actually... And I'm going to recommend 6 concrete policy recommendations ranked by impact. Formally define energy poverty in federal law and set national targets. Let's say reduce 50% by 2030. 5 years seems reasonable. Why does this matter? Because if you can't manage what you don't measure, right now, energy poverty isn't even on the federal radar as a distinct issue. Make it official, track it, and hold the government to account. Policy 2, and this should be a big, create a no-cost turnkey retrofit program for low-income households. Not a grant you apply for, not a loan you pay back. Free, done for you. Target renters, Indigenous communities, and the old, most inefficient homes. Include health and safety upgrades, mold remediation, ventilation, carbon monoxide detectors. The impact of this would be 500 to 1,500 in annual energy savings per household, better health, and lower emissions. And the cost of this would only be about $2 to $3 billion a year to retrofit 100,000 homes annually. It sounds like a lot. It's not. The healthcare costs from providing these from pulling these people out of energy poverty is estimated at $1,200 to $1,800 per household per year. It basically pays itself because we can reduce the healthcare costs. Policy 3, replace all those complicated programs with one automatic national energy discount. If you're a low-income household, you get $200 to $400 off your annual energy bill. No application, it just shows up. Use income data from the Canada Revenue Agency and make it seamless. Although we also have to fix that because it's only accurate 17% of the time. Yeah, that's also a side note. Introduce mandatory minimum energy performance standards for rental properties. If you're a landlord, your building has to meet basic efficiency standard before you can rent it out. Provide landlords with grants and low-cost financing to help them upgrade and comply. And protect tenants from increased rent costs and rent evictions. The impact would be $300 to $800 in annual savings for renters once standards are met. Reform utility rates. This one's for the provincial regulators. Reduce fixed charges and adopt inclining block rates, where the first chunk of energy you use, the essential, is cheaper, and the price goes up the more you use. This makes the system fairer for low-income houses who use less electricity. And this impact would save $100 to $300 in annual savings. And the last one is to massively scale up funding for led renewable energy projects. Transition all those 250 diesel-dependent communities to solar, wind, battery storage, and biomass. Make projects community-owned. Local capacity. The impact of this would be $1,000 to over $3,000 in annual savings per household. And energy sovereignty. Here's the bottom line. Energy poverty in Canada is a crisis. It is affecting 822,000 households, and it's potentially up to 2 million when you include transportation costs. That's making people sick. It's trapping families in a cycle of debt and despair, and it's completely solvable. We have the data. We have the solutions. Every other country is doing this successfully. What we need is a political win. So what I'm asking you to do is share this video. The more people who understand the issue, the harder it is politicians get to ignore it. 2, if you're affected by energy poverty or you know somebody who is, look into the programs that are offered in your province. I'll make sure to provide as many as I can below. And 3, contact your MP. Tell them you want a national strategy to eliminate energy poverty. Tell them you want an automatic bill discount and a deep retrofit program. Because here's the thing, in one of the wealthiest countries in the world, no one should have to choose between heat and food. We can fix this. Let's make it happen. Thank you for watching. I hope you like this. I'm going to try doing more of these in the future. And to my audience out there and everybody trying to make the world a little bit better, stay weird.